This is a quick response to Gary about confidence. He responded to my video confidence in lack. What I'm saying there, Gary, basically, or one of the things I'm saying, is that it's a good idea to try to match the level of confidence one has to the amount of knowledge one has. And even then, probably underestimate the amount of knowledge one has in terms of applying confidence. It's a general principle, really, in terms of how we gather knowledge and how philosophy and science and those things proceed. You shouldn't let your confidence in an idea run ahead of what you actually know. That's the thing. And you tend to do that. I mean, at least in appearance. Maybe it's just a video making style and you don't actually feel as confident as you seem to be. But a lot of the time you do say, oh, this is simple stuff, I'm absolutely sure this stuff is the truth, it's real, all these kind of terms, which suggest, an overwhelming confidence, almost an overbearing confidence, you might say. But it doesn't match the level of knowledge you have about the subject you talk about. I mean, the reason why I say it might just be appearance is because clearly some of the things you know almost nothing about, like the physics and biology stuff and the stuff about consciousness you talk about. I mean, you've got very little information on that. That's really clear from the draft science videos, for example. But the amount of confidence you display in those videos, seems equal to the rest of your stuff, really. So it just seems, at least on its face, that you are, it's just hubristic, is that the word? Overwhelming amount of misplaced confidence. I mean, just as an example of that, I mean, the consciousness stuff you've talked about. You've made a number of videos about consciousness itself and about the things that fall under that general rubric, things like to do with free will discussions or to do with intentionality and agency or to do with what a self is. All these kind of things relate to what's broadly called consciousness studies. And but it's clear that you know nothing about that, or you know little about it. I mean, I'm not an expert in consciousness and cognitive science at all, but I know a damn sight more than you do. I've read a lot of the literature on this. I used to subscribe to Consciousness Studies Journal and read that. I've got a collection at home. I've given papers at conferences about consciousness, including speaking to the British Psychological Society about some work I was doing on consciousness. So I'm not an expert at all. I'm really, really well behind the curve in terms of knowing that. But I probably know 50 or 60 times more than you do. And yet you seem extraordinarily confident about when you say, make these proclamations or do the drawings about consciousness. And to me, as someone who knows about that stuff, at least to the extent that I do a little bit, I know how wrong you are in most of those things and how naive most of those demonstrations are. So I just think, how can he be so confident and yet know so little? There's nothing wrong with knowing little. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But being confident is a bit weird. I mean, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what your field is or what your areas of expertise are. Coding or something, I guess. But I can't cite any examples for that. But let's say you know a lot about engines. You know a lot about cars. I know very little. I know just enough to do what I did last week, which is to fix the exhaust pipe and put some brake pads on and change the oil. That's about it. And I'm guessing you know a lot because you've talked a lot about car engines at various times. So it would be like me making a video talking about drawing a picture of what lies under the bonnet of a car. Getting it all wrong and say, this is where the motivational power source is, and this is where the essence of turniness lies. And being very confident about how the inner workings of the internal combustion engine work. And just getting it wrong, and you just look at me and think, are you fucking insane? Pick up a Haynes manual, you would shout at me, you fucking retard. So that's what I feel with you. Pick up a few books about consciousness, if it's consciousness you're talking about. Or if you're not a big reader, and a lot of people have, reading difficulties. I'm not saying that's you, a lot of people do, there's no shame in that. There's plenty of other kinds of resources, aren't there, where you can gain access to audio books or videos and stuff. Or getting conversation, Rainbow. Getting conversation with people who know these things, with a bit of humility about the parlous state of your lack of knowledge. Get some humility about that, I would suggest. It's up to you, of course. Before you spout off in this really confident manner that you have. Because the only people, several things will happen. First off, you look like a fucking idiot to anybody who knows what they're talking about. And that might not bother you, that's fine. So the only people who will listen to you are people who are as I say, easily swayed, or just like that kind of barroom, what used to be called putting the world to right, you know, where you just sit down with your mates over a pint and argue the toss and none of you knows what you're talking about. It's just fun doing that. I mean, yeah, you can get involved in that, but if you're involved in something more, you need to up your game. So as I say, the only people you'll get talking at the level you're talking at, it's people who like that kind of barroom barratry, or, not to put too fine a point on it, sycophants. You know, my mystery and me, Jay Sounder, I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He's clearly in love with you, Gary. I'm sure you're aware of that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's very sweet. I like it. But it doesn't lead to unbiased, informed opinion. So if you're, for example, being cheered and cheered on by Jay Sounder, or example, and regarding what you're doing as being legitimised by that kind of approval, then again, you're not subjecting yourself to scrutiny, really. You're just not. And dismissing anybody who has an informed opinion. I've got an informed opinion, you know, and many years ago, I offered to be a critical friend to you, and you rejected that because you don't want critical friends. You seem to want to be doing this other thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I got to say, really. I mean, as I'd say, match your confidence to your. If you want to participate at the grown-up table, you need to match your confidence to your level of knowledge. Acknowledge that other people know more than you do. Acknowledge that their motivation for disagreeing with you might not be to put you down or to reinforce their own worldviews. You seem to think that I'm frightened of the truth. I think you're frightened of the truth, personally. But motivation is irrelevant in this stuff. It's to do with moving on the conversation and being grown up about it, really. I mean, are you enough of a grown up to be confident in your own ignorance and to want to do something about it? You know, that's the question. Or are you so lacking in confidence that all you've got is this kind of overbearing assertion, you know, and desire to prove yourself right? Anyway, have a think about it, Gary. I don't suppose this. I'm sure it's water off a duck's back. I'm sure you'll ignore it, but whatever.